A journalist named Greta answers the door, and an agent steps in. He allows Greta to look through evidence files and take pictures of them. She's astonished at the files and says that it has the power to destroy the U.S. The agent replies that many will die if the information is released and turns off the safety of his gun to shoot Greta. At the CIA headquarters, an agent named Kate inspects all the CCTV footage to find traces of Greta's killer. She sees a suspicious man wearing a hat and finds a picture of him in a person's photo. Kate informs the director, O'Malley, about it and reveals the man's identity to be Victor, a former member of the CIA who supposedly died a year ago. A man enters an office and introduces himself as Steve, a bricklayer. On his break, he goes to a restaurant where Kate and O'Malley sit at a table. Kate informs him that journalists who write about U.S. intelligence are being killed and the CIA is being framed. O'Malley continues by saying that the blackmailer has classified information that can bring them down. They suspect it's Victor, but Steve can't believe it because Victor never kills innocent people and has seen him die. O'Malley takes out a picture of a man that Victor had ended and tells Steve it was found at Greta's murder site. O'Malley tells him to fix the mess he created and go to Greece with Kate to hunt Victor down. Steve doesn't care since he's already retired and leaves the restaurant. Steve returns to work but gets a flashback of him at the beach with a young girl, Victor, and his wife. His thoughts are interrupted when bullets shoot through the wall he built, piercing his waist. Steve hides and it starts to rain. He then takes a roll of duct tape to patch his injury. He rappels down the building and dodges the bullets, then attacks the men going after him. Steve accepts the mission and leaves for Greece with Kate. On the plane, Kate looks through confidential files and finds the report on Steve ending Victor, along with gruesome pictures of Victor's murdered family. They land in Greece, and Steve decides to visit some old friends. Kate is unhappy about him straying off the plan, but Steve tells her it doesn't matter since the mission is unauthorized and they're working secretly. They're provided with new identities and equipment, and Kate will play the role of Steve's wife. Steve and Kate dress up and proceed with their mission in a Mercedes. They arrive at their hotel room in Thessaloniki, Greece. After Kate showers, she doesn't find Steve in the room. Steve goes to church, thinking about the good times with Victor and his family, then plants a phone in a hidden spot. Afterward, he attends an art exhibition and excuses another agent named Ty to speak with her. Ty asks about his presence since the police are still looking for him. Steve tells her he isn't worried and informs her about the mission on Victor. Ty's confused since she thinks Victor's dead, but Steve tells her otherwise and gives intel about the mission. Steve asks her for help, and she gives him the information he needs. Steve arrives at a club to meet Dennis, someone he hired in the past for dirty work. Dennis asks where he's been, and Steve lies, saying he got married and has been on honeymoon during his absence. Steve asks about Victor's whereabouts, since it wouldn't have been possible for Dennis to achieve success by himself. Dennis insists he's dead, but Steve isn't satisfied with his answer. Dennis tells him off, saying he can't be pushed around anymore like before since he's now a respected businessman. Steve provokes him, and Dennis warns him about his men. When Steve accepts the drink, he smashes the glass in the man's face and whacks Dennis with the bottle. He fights against Dennis's men and gets chased out of the club. Kate is ready with a car, and they drive off. Steve asks for her phone since he found out Kate was tracking him. He tells her he placed the tracker on one of the men to lead them to Victor. Steve explains Victor used to be a hitman for the CIA and started killing Russians who he thought were involved in his family's murder. The CIA tasked Steve to track him down and neutralize him, but has failed since Victor is alive and active. Ty receives a creepy email, and a group of agents watches a video blackmailing them that they'll release confidential information to the public if they don't pay $100 million. Meanwhile, Steve and Kate arrive at Dennis's mansion to find evidence of Victor. They enter and split up to search. Kate finds a location on a laptop, and Steve finds files hidden inside a brick wall. They see Greta's phone and a newspaper with a journalist's article. Victor's next target. The door unlocks and they rush to hide. One of Dennis's men grabs a drink, but Kate sneezes in the distance, alerting him. He looks around and Steve throws a punch. They fight, but the man has the upper hand, injuring Steve. Kate aims her gun at him, but the man simply whacks it out of her grasp. The duo tries to take the man down, but they're no match for him. Steve gets into a knife duel but gets choked down on the ground. He reaches for his trowel and stabs the man in the neck. Steve and Kate patch themselves up, and Kate is disappointed with her performance since Steve could have died. Steve reassures her and receives a text informing him of the next murder location. Kate, Steve, and his friend Patricio arrive at Emporio Square, the location Kate found on the laptop. Patricio sits at the restaurant near the journalist, and Steve gets a call from Victor. He mentions their deal about letting him go and never appearing again. Meanwhile, a protest happens near Kate, who reaches out to Steve but doesn't receive a response. Victor tells Steve that the CIA blew his cover during a mission, so he seeks revenge. He advises Steve to back off for Kate's sake since he may be unable to protect her, just as he couldn't protect Victor's family. Steve catches up with Victor, but it's only a scapegoat. Victor shoots the journalist in the middle of the restaurant, causing everyone to panic. Victor flees on his motorcycle and Steve shoots it. He runs off and Patricio finds a cracked tablet from the motorcycle. Kate gets angry about what happened and reminds Steve of the protocols. They discuss the photo left by Victor at the crime scene, and Steve mentions that Victor has a list of the CIA's active targets. Kate tells him they need to inform O'Malley, but Steve reveals that O'Malley already knows everything. He explains that O'Malley is either trying to cover himself or he's the mole, leaking information to Victor. Steve warns Kate not to trust anyone at the CIA, but Kate calls him a hypocrite since he met up with Ty, the station head. Steve visits Ty's place, and she tells him she's on paid leave since all U.S. intelligence activities have been suspended in Greece. They talk about how the agency blew Victor's cover, and Ty can only explain that the CIA felt betrayed. Steve mentions being betrayed by her when they were supposed to leave together, but she never came. Ty explains she couldn't pass up on the opportunity O'Malley gave her as head of station, so she took the job. Steve takes her hands and they dance to the music together. He gets a flashback of him with Victor, who tells him he doesn't want the mission given to him. Steve tells him he has no choice since he has an agreement with the agency, and they may revoke their offer to relocate his family. Steve wakes up on Ty's couch and he's served breakfast. Ty gives intel about the person behind the blackmail video, and Steve informs her about Victor's tablet, which Patricio is working on. Ty says Patricio isn't reliable with it and asks for the tablet to provide intel about Victor's plans. Steve heads out, and Ty asks if he can just return home and drop everything since the minister, Costas, will be enraged if he finds out about Steve's presence in Greece. Steve replies that he couldn't save Victor's family and that he should try to save him in return. In the hotel room, Kate watches the CCTV footage of Steve wearing his earphones to talk with Victor. Steve enters, and Kate assures him she hasn't said anything to O'Malley. Kate wonders why O'Malley would send Steve on the mission if he's Victor's mole, then aims her gun at Steve. Kate mentions she found his burner phones and has contacted Victor. Steve tells her he couldn't be working with Victor since he had killed him, but Kate suspects he let Victor go. Steve takes the gun from her to aim it at her head, but returns it. They arrive at the warehouse, but Patricio isn't answering the phone. Steve suspects something is wrong since Patricio always answers, then prepares his gun to enter. They walk inside to find it empty, but see a large cloth hanging in the air. When Steve pulls it off, they see Patricio bloody and deceased. Steve realizes it's bait, finding bombs on the ground. Kate defuses it, and they lay Patricio's body down. Dennis and his men arrive, preparing to shoot. Steve and Kate find cover, and Steve starts firing. He takes down several and throws a tank of gas to shoot it, causing an explosion. Kate sneaks off with the bag of bombs attached to Patricio as Steve continues to fight. Suddenly, a laser is pointed at his chest, and Dennis orders him to either surrender or die. Steve refuses, but Dennis has Kate as a hostage. Steve makes a deal with him and orders Kate to leave. Kate doesn't want to leave Steve, but he doesn't want her to die. Steve walks towards Dennis, but he throws the bag of bombs and shoots it. Kate watches as Steve exits the warehouse alive, and they return to the hotel. In the car, Steve explains how the CIA would have promoted Victor if he had eliminated Costas. Neither of them couldn't do it. Angering the CIA, Kate receives a message saying O'Malley agrees to pay the $100 million from the blackmail. Steve and Kate meet up with Ty and O'Malley. O'Malley tasks Kate with handing the money, but Steve is against it. He tells Steve he's out of the mission since he's done enough damage. Steve leaves, and they prepare Kate for the task. Kate arrives at a tavern, and Steve sneaks up behind her. He destroys the earpiece and takes over the mission. Then Kate thanks him. Steve finds a laptop and inserts the USB with Bitcoin inside. A video call with Victor appears, and Steve mentions the death of his friend. Victor tells him he warns Steve and plans to target Costas next, revealing all the dirty secrets of the CIA. Steve tells him he'll cause a war, and many lives will be lost. Victor says it is what it is and that he no longer wants to suffer alone. Steve is locked inside and he finds a bomb with a timer. He pushes the bomb close to the exit and informs Kate about Victor's plans. He escapes, and Victor tries to run him over. Kate arrives with the car and they chase him down. Victor speeds through a group of protesters, leaving Steve to make a detour and drive through a wall. They catch up to Victor's van and crash into him, making it flip over. Medics attend to Kate while Steve doesn't see Victor in the van. Steve arrives at Costas' speech and scouts for Victor. He finds him behind one of the cameras disguised as a sniper, and Steve prepares his gun. Steve takes a sledgehammer and destroys Victor's platform, causing him to miss his shot. He mashes Victor's hands so he can't reach for the gun. Steve apologizes that he couldn't save his family, and Victor bids him farewell. Victor reaches for something inside his jacket, but Steve finishes him before Victor can try anything. Instead of a pistol, Victor has a Polaroid in his hand. Steve picks it up, and it's a picture of him with Victor and his family. He doesn't have time to get sentimental when the police shoot him. Steve wakes up at the hospital with Kate beside him. Kate informs him they couldn't find the Bitcoin, and O'Malley says Costas thinks the CIA saved him since they claim Steve as their own. O'Malley leaves, and Kate thinks he's holding the Bitcoin for himself. Steve assures her that karma will come after O'Malley. Kate is unhappy that they aren't going to do anything about him, but Steve tells her he can't fight an enemy he doesn't understand, unlike Victor. Ty prepares to leave with her luggage when she sees Steve on the couch. She explains she wants a break after everything that happened and serves him a drink. When Steve gets a vinyl, he finds the same record Victor gave him and looks over at Ty. He plays music and tells Ty he wants to pack his records from her place. Ty invites him on her trip, but Steve refuses since he still has a grudge against her. He looks out the window to see her ride waiting for her, but finds Ty aiming her gun at him. Ty tells him the men aren't here for her, and Steve realizes she was the one working with Victor. Ty defends herself, saying she had no choice and has turned over a new leaf. She bids him goodbye as the men walk to the apartment. Steve grabs a package from a vinyl and tosses it into the oven before escaping through the balcony. One of the men hears the oven beep and explodes upon opening it. Steve falls on top of a car and Ty prepares to run him over. Kate appears and aims her gun at Ty, shooting her before she can reach Steve. Ty crashes into another vehicle, and Steve looks at her deceased figure. Kate consoles him and takes him away. Kate informs O'Malley about Ty being the mole, and O'Malley tells her she's now an unwanted person in Greece. He also orders her to pack her things since she's getting promoted. Kate refuses the promotion and packs up, leaving with Patricio's dog.
Subscribe to watch more videos like this. Turn on notifications. And leave a like, it really helps the channel out. Thank you for watching.